Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know after lunch sessions are generally a bit challenging, so I'll try my best to create the interest and take you through this wonderful journey that I've been into for the last about 4 years. 3D prototyping. So that's the name of the division. Yeah. I print my things 3D prototyping. Really, you can print it yourself. So it's that similar, and I like to start with very basic stuff. How many of us have played with things like these? Right? I'm sure everybody would have done that. But where did we lose them? The question is. Our world is three-dimensional, and what happens is we get the pen and the paper, we go to school with notebooks and books, and it becomes two-dimensional. Uh, if I would like to take your attention through this, if we've learned the square, the triangle, we've been taught that you create the lines and it becomes three-dimensional. Is it three-dimensional to you? It appears so. So that's exactly what it is. The 3D rendition is a 3D rendition. It's actually not three-dimensional. But if I were to take an actual cube, I would take a pyramid, right? And I put it on top. It's three-dimensional. It's actually like a house. So that's the basic designing I'm touching upon. Next, to talk about the 3D. Okay, sorry. Let me just take you through when I talk about design. This is what is Tinkercad, and that's how we simply design. It's an online software that we use in design. So many are curious, many are wondering that how actually do we design. So if you just go through that's the graph. So it's all online and it's all available. So if I were to take basic geometric shapes to start with, just to build your interest, there is our cube, right? I put a cube there. I can increase the breadth, increase the length, or even increase the height as I may choose. That's how simple it is. Now I take a pyramid. I just took one which was actually in a physical form. I would randomly take any height, and that's the one I put it on top. So there you go. And what you have is actually a semi-finished house, right? So if you're teaching a child how to draw a house, use paintbrush, you can actually use this for information dissemination. Dr. Pant talked about Pythagoras theorems and geometry. So geometry best taught in this fashion. That there you go. You actually can make a house. So where would now that the design is there, what happens is that the 3D printer, which is in front of you, recognizes .stl file, which stands for stereolithography .stl. So that's the file that the printer recognizes. It's also all open source hardware plus the software. So what happens is a two-dimensional printer would have an X and a Y axis, which would typically print on paper. So that's the X-axis, that's the Y-axis. The third dimension here is the height, that's the Z-axis. So you take you take your STL file, you put it in an SD card, you insert the SD card into the printer, and there you print whatever you want to print. So just to briefly tell you about the printer, that's what is the heat bed where the model is printed. That's a wire spool which goes into, that's the raw material which the product would eventually look like. So I've got a couple of 3D printed products with me that were printed before. I can give it to you and pass it around. Have a feel of them, have a touch of them. So that's primarily what the capability of the 3D printer is that it can do. it's a decent sized printer. You can print multiple parts, or you can make a larger model part by part, and then join it together. You got a large model. That's an ABS wire spool to talk about. There is PLA. You can print in 20 different materials, starting from rubber, concrete, chocolates, ceramics, metal. But the printers do differ. So I'll talk about the printers. I'll tell you about that. The other object is a 3D pen, which Dr. Pant is carrying. So it's primarily same as the 3D printer, but it's just you can make it freehand. So you don't you are the own CAD designer, so you would kind of make it in freehand, and you're good to go. Now to talk about a bit of we can maybe we can do it later. But yeah, I mean I can just explain it to you that there goes the power connection, there goes the wire spool, which is the same wire that you put it in here, and it heats automatically. There's an extruder button, you just press it, and the filament comes out in hot liquid form. So you can make it anyway, or you've got a sketchbook, so you can just outline it. And the third dimension is when you lift it off, so it becomes in 3 dimensions, like what I think Arul has made already. So that's using the 3D pen, right?
This is done with 3D pen.
This is done with the 3D pen. What Arul has done. Yeah, I can pass it on to you.
I've seen it. I've seen this.
So there's a lot of customization. There's a lot of personalization that can be done. For example, if I have 4 toilets in my house, I would not find a faucet which can have my name onto it. So I can actually print my name, print 4 or 5 of these, and make them individual and unique. Yes, we do. We do. True. So, yeah. So these are a couple of high-end products that are 3D printed, and I tried hard printing Dr. Pant's name, but yeah, it was a lot of time. So this also are there. The machine has to have a very warm environment. It doesn't work in an AC one because the material is flowing and it needs to be hot. So that's against us. But I can try after the presentation, maybe before we leave, to do something. Yeah, and it needs some calibration also, to be honest. So when we transport it, the settings go off. So that's also a bit of a challenge. So I brought it especially just for a demo, but I can try my best.
Switch off the AC and
very, very hot for everybody.
I don't know.
So
there are video in which like you can watch.
Yes, I will show that. I will show. Yes, I will. I will do that after. So 3D education is typically learning by doing, as I briefly harped upon the children. There are many applications that the students can do. For example, making their arts, science, geography, history projects. Typically, what students do is they collect a few things here and there, they assemble it together, and they make a project. So instead of buying stuff, they can actually 3D print the stuff, which adds to more of their creativity, more of their input into the project and the learning. So you give the child a task and let them do it, let them figure out how we do it. The other application is for 3D food printing, that the child can actually, through this software, create the .stl file, and then you have 3D food printers which actually print food to the desired shape that you're wanting. So it could be like a 3D burger or a 3D printed pizza, which actually the parents can choose that what proteins, vitamins, minerals they want to feed in. So all those proteins, vitamins, and minerals actually come in the spool form. So the spool contains them, and then you can combine them and print whatever they want. So that's another frontier that is there.
So beside pizza, if you are talking about pizza, what all would be besides? You said
So it's
protein.
a-
So how is protein put into?
So it's a spool. So it's a spool. You don't need a bread.
It's like
So
cheese.
Kind of cheese. I mean, for us, pizza and burger are a typical image that we have in mind. So it's just the same image, but just the ingredients that go inside it is actually it would just look like a burger.
It's not edible.
It's edible.
It's
You can
edible.
eat it, but it's just an image. I mean, you won't see a patty. You won't see a separate bun altogether on top, or mayonnaise. It would just look as if like you have those burger candies or pizza candies in store which children like. I mean, it's not actually a pizza, but
May
it
not
just,
be
it
all
just
of
look.
toppings and
Yeah,
lots of cheese.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Simplest would be to eat all the wires.
That's one option.
So if we got STL file, we always need to create a design, or can you copy paste or do something like that also?
So you can do that. I can. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
So,
What is the create the design?
Copy paste.
Paste करके मैं रोज I'm trying to think from the angle of like.
So this is a site called Thingiverse, right? So where actually people globally have made 3D designs and uploaded in there. So if you have an option कि आप copy paste ना करें, for example, you want to have a glass. So the glass people would have made. If you like that design, you go for it. Or you can download a pre-made STL file. So either you make one STL file or you download whatever you're looking at.
Yes,
And-
I was like, for example, thinking in terms of a baker, for example, right?
Sorry?
A baker. So
Hmm.
I'm making a cake and I need a particular rose, very intricate. I'm just thinking.
Sure.
A very intricate rose icing kind of, a decoration on that. क्योंकि इसमें chocolate से हो सकता
होते हैं, yeah.
So,
True.
can I create an intricate design?
Yes.
What I mean to say is, no, I'm not good at creating something
Yeah, yeah,
when it
yeah,
comes to a 3D design. I can't do that. I can maybe draw it at the max, maybe.
You can do it, yeah.
So then, is there a way to copy paste or do something there, and then that creates like that?
Absolutely, you can do it. It's possible. It's certainly possible. There is a video. I mean, if we have time, I can show you, share that video with you. So the other things is the 3D games printing. So games like Minecraft, which Arun also showed. So you got the scene, you got the setting. You can actually print the whole setting, download the STL file, and print the whole setting. So that's another application that children are doing. But first and foremost, what's more important as adults, as parents, as educators, is that to spot the interest of children, of your own students, what are they more inclined with, and to nurture that talent and send it further on. So 3D printing does give us that option, that opportunity to, in many spheres, be it medical or cars or toys or you name it, to do that. So I can share with you one video which I have here. It's about a natural history video. I've shown this before also, but it's something very interesting. What's happening around archaeology, history, 3D printing being taught or being incorporated rather.
I didn't think that we were going to go as far as to make dinosaurs with 3D printing. We're literally printing Capturing dinosaurs was the first time the museum tried to use digital fabrication as a way to teach young people about science, specifically about paleontology. They're being given a group of real fossils. Along with these bones, are being given the tools to be able to create 3D models of them.
What's really cool and sort of unique about this program is you get to go to places that the public do not have access to normally. You also get to meet real scientists.
We got to see where they prep the fossils. We got to see all the places they scanned 3D in the museum. We got to see all this really cool stuff that I never even knew they had.
Just being able to say that you actually held a dinosaur fossil, it was exciting.
The paleontology department was kind enough to give us a lot of the bones from Allosaurus, which is from the Jurassic. Part of the program was that we did not tell them the animal that they were scanning. So part of the puzzle was looking at the bones that they were scanning and trying to figure out which dinosaur did it come from. A lot of students thought it was T-Rex, some thought it came from a long-necked sauropod.
Our classroom is actually the Museum of Natural History. The students are able to go out into the halls and look at the actual exhibits when they have a question about, for instance, how did the Allosaurus hold its hand?
You took literally between 5,000 to 6,000 photos, which were then turned into about 150 different models. Every time they were taking a photo, every time they would.
So what's happening is that they're taking a picture. So the picture they're creating the data. So that's one way that you can either you design it yourself, or you have these number of pictures that you take and you feed it into a software. It would create a 3D file. So now on the computer, what they're doing is actually creating the 3D file, and then they want to print it.
So
The model. Which
I
how-
take a picture of this pen, and where do I insert it in the print?
So it has to be not just one picture, it has to be multiple pictures, because a picture typically is a two-dimensional thing. So it's a 360, you take about 15, 20 pictures, and then you stitch them all together, then you get a 3D file.
They tried to stitch those models together. They were looking with careful detail at minute aspects of those bones. The same thing that paleontologists do.
It really taught me how paleontologists reconstruct and study dinosaurs and how they have to deal with disarticulated bones from different individuals and broken bones.
I didn't expect to see what we put together actually come out. It was really precise.
The fact that I was able to remake the bone was really exciting. Just amazing.
It has inspired me to maybe one day even go to college for paleontology. I always thought that I was going to work with technology, but now after doing this, I know that I can do both of them together. So I feel that I can do this.
So that's how they have done. And now to start the presentation, the PowerPoint. Well, India has got a huge potential anyway, and it's growing at a 20% margin. CAGR year on year, the main industries that are benefiting from it to talk about is the automotive, medical, aerospace, primarily more true in Bombay, Bangalore, that's where the action is. Yes, and architecture. Plus in education, it's starting to really come, and slowly, I think schools are going to adopt it, colleges are going to adopt it. The main companies that are around the globe, the Stratasys, EOS, and Renishaw, they are already in India. They've got operations here. Any R&D center works, it's why has had something to do with 3D printing, or they have 3D printers, or they've got 3D prototyping done. So, coming to the core question, what exactly is 3D prototyping? So, in a sense, the textbook definition gives us that it's a group of techniques used to quickly fabricate a scale model of a physical part of assembly using three-dimensional CAD data. So I've shown you the CAD, which can be used. Of course, that's very entry-level basic. My basic ideology is to teach the basics. There are a number of people here in India doing very advanced work with SolidWorks or Rhino and other such high-end softwares, or even very high precision jobs which are happening. But I started with the concept that, okay, let's take it to the grassroots level. The early adopters who, over the next 15, 20 years, are really going to benefit out of this whole technology. So, basically explain you the XYZ axis. So the question remains that the prototyping is not new. Traditionally, prototyping has been happening. Prototyping per se will always exist, because whatever you manufacture, for instance, if I were to take the outer casing, it would have gone through a prototype, right? So a prototype is basically that you would take a solid piece of wood or metal, you would chisel out whatever is not required, create a cavity through which you can shove in the liquid, whether be it through injection molding or molten metal, and then create a finished product. So that's traditionally prototyping is per se what is there. However, it's more time consuming. It depends on the skills and the accuracy of the guy who's doing the prototype. It's environmentally not friendly because you're wasting a lot of stuff that goes out. So this is additive manufacturing. You're adding layer by layer and creating the product. So it's fast, it's more efficient, it's more to precise. Instead of tinkering with the prototype traditionally method, if something goes wrong, you start the process all over again. Here, for example, I did something with the fun. It didn't go wrong. It didn't go well. So you can discard it and make another one, and the iteration is faster. Having said that, it's not something just to be mass manufactured. It's customized and personalized manufacturing. So if you want small pieces or a prototype to test the form, fit, feel, size, shape, then this is the technology to be. The process, as I described to you, you start with the designing. So just get onto any CAD software. You export the .stl file. You have the SD card. You put it in, get your data there. It will create a G code, which is the language that the printer recognizes, and you print thereafter. So it's that simple as it is. And I would actually, encourage you to try designing something. I mean, it's like you're creating yourself something. It's a great feeling. It's a great experience altogether. So okay, let's shift it. The question should have been that what cannot be made using 3D prototyping rather than what can be made. A few examples there: you can make toys, prosthetics, clothing, models, guns, jewelry, art pieces which are very, very different. Then houses are being made. You've got airplanes, 3D cars that people have made. So the limit is there's no limit. So the kinds of 3D printers we come to. This is a very basic entry-level 3D printer. The technology is called FDM, to the left, fused deposition modeling, and it's low cost. It's great for quick, small prototypes, demo purposes. Next is SLA, not actually mentioned here. That is stereolithography. You have a vat of resin. Through UV light, you cure it, and you make your product. It'll be more smoother, just like the faucet would have seen, and more precise in terms of microns. The third is selective laser sintering. That's when you are using laser, you're fusing the metal powder and creating metal objects or parts which can be used for high-end applications. So those machines EOS makes, and they come in crores of rupees. So SLA machine would cost a few lakhs, and a machine like this would cost a few thousands. So that's the difference in technology. Well, being a management guy, I always do this SWOT analysis, a bit of brief on the strengths and the other things of the product. So it's a nascent product. It's a new market. There's huge scope of customization and novelty products that can be created, which you've not seen, cannot be done by hand or by machines. It's a low-cost equipment. It's not very heavy. The parts are easily available, and it's an open-source technology, open-source software. I mean, that's there are the patents have got expired, so the market is open and right for anybody to tinker around and go about it. There is a very low requirement, for storage space for inventory, because it's on demand and on-site manufacturing. So unlike the Chinese model of mass manufacturing, if people are doing 3D printing, you can actually manufacture when it is required. There's no need of inventory, and so there is no need of logistics for that much. So it could be a great game changer for the developing world and shift mass manufacturing from China to places in Asia or Africa where the demand is of a particular type of model or product. Last one is easy to learn. I've shared the secret with you. There's nothing difficult about it. Couple of weaknesses there. The demand is low, along with the awareness, and that's what I'm trying to create. The components right now are 100% imported, which attract a higher degree of duty, which is about 30% right now. I estimate about 5 years the technology to mature and learn.
In India.
In India, that's right. Then there are few knowledge of CAD and lesser designers and jobbers who can actually work on it. And I'll touch upon the jobbing part later. And it's slow, so that's one thing. It's not going to be fast. It's not mass manufacturing. It takes some time. Make. Now the opportunities. It's a very virgin market. Anybody who gets into it, has a first mover advantage. The margins relatively are higher at the moment. There's a huge potential for the design industry because, I mean, given the fact that a huge population, there are a lot of designers and people have their own ideas how to go about it. The government is very aggressively promoting electronics, as you might be aware, in India. Now, it's a great potential for entrepreneurship. The technology stands where actually the photocopier, your jobbers were 30 years back. And if we have a jobber or 3D jobber in each locality, you can just take your STL file, give it to him, print it, and get your model. So that's what the idea is. I mean, you don't need to own a printer per se. There are people very much owning these things, and they can do it on a regular basis. So through our ITIs, if we can train these people, so it directly affects our employment levels also and creates a lot of entrepreneurship. The threats are, well, always the introduction from the higher, the giants is there that people like us get eliminated. So there could be a rise in input costs, and of course, low quality imports from China. So this is an American Chinese printer, so I wouldn't call it a low quality.
The HP, Samsung, and the other printer people entered into 3D printing or not?
Yes.
They have.
Yes. So target markets. Again, the question should be, what is not a target market for 3D printing? To start with, as individuals, each person is a target market, and the computer literate population of India is target market. We don't realize it, but in terms of upskilling ourselves, in terms of utilizing the technology for our own uses, you would certainly have a 3D printer in each house, or a 3D pen for that matter, in the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, it will become like, just as you have a normal two-dimensional printer now in each house, each office. The other target markets are medical. It's not being used for making prosthetics or printing tissues. Earplugs are being 3D printed. The entertainment and the tourism industry have a great potential. We also did what was called mini-me's. So this was a small example. We tried to make a prototype of scan of my face attached and made it along with a pen holder. But for weddings and all, printing mini-me, or you stand against Qutub Minar, Red Fort in the backdrop, you take pictures. You want to do 3D scan thing, and you have that in your backdrop and you're standing in front. So it's for entertainment as well as tourism. For archaeological restoration, imagine if in Palmyra, if the ISIS have destroyed all the temples and the heritage sites, had somebody 3D scanned all that thing, they would have actually been recreated once the civil war would have been over. So it's a great way to archive, our history, our heritage, for that matter. For defense and civil, you can fly drones alongside the border. 3D printed drones used. You can fly them in the wildlife parks. Some we talked about fire, and we are being used in firefighting. So just send a drone, check out if there's anybody there. Firemen don't need to go themselves, so that is an alternate application. Construction industry, in China, in Dubai, they are printing using concrete 3D printers and making houses. If anybody's interested, I have the video. I can send you that. Education, this is a huge scope I talked about. Retail and personalized segment. I mean, if you see my card, I'm also wearing a 3D brooch along with the 3D glasses on. So it's all personalized and customized. So there are 3D printed clothes as well that are there. A bit of financials globally of 3D companies. Some time ago, 3D Systems, Stratasys, all billion-dollar valuations, not as big as AR and VR, I guess, but they've got somewhere there already. Yeah. So what I basically do, coming on to my introduction, if wanted to introduce before, I'm into business development and marketing for 3D products. We talk 3D printers, sketchers, and 3D scanners. 3D education is very clear to me. So I tied up with this European 3D online course called Get Ready for 3D, which actually teaches whatever I've taught you. So you, in a sense, learn more of it. I'm basically an entrepreneur, so we've been into dairying. I've been have done my graduation, post-graduation from Manchester and Bradford. Well, I'm very passionate about this technology, and my mission is to educate computer-literate customers in practical 3D education. So you just don't need learning theories. It's all how you can implement it and use it. And the vision is to make 3D technology a no-brainer. So I'm not a techie here. I'm just telling you what's the advantage of it. If I would ask many of you that how you generate electricity, I mean, very few would know. Dr. Pant would know at the back of his hand. But yes, you know how it's the benefit. You can cook a man's meal. It provides us lighting. So that's what the whole technology is about, and I feel that's the great mission that we can do. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Pant. Thank you for a patient hearing.
You've seen that we got very interesting insights. At one level, virtual reality, augmented reality, and 3D reality. You can imagine what it is all about. Avikshit is right, it's a bit slow in taking off, but what happens is at many of these fields, one has to wait for the killer application. And whenever things happen, for example, the spreadsheet was created as VisiCalc, and then when people started adopting it, then Apple actually sold because of VisiCalc. So it was the software which got the hardware to sell. And we've seen this very often. I think right now 3D printing in India is waiting for that killer application. This can either happen by somebody stumbling upon it or somebody doing a systematic study. So for example, to me what it looks like, and as you said, household items which need replacement on a piece-off basis. So there is something to do with your plumbing and your tap is there, getting another tap of that kind, you have to search a market. So some jobber will come and say, I will make a tap for you. Or you have a set of cups and out of that 6, 1 cup is broken and 1 saucer is broken. You won't go and buy another set, etc. You could probably do this. Somebody who can organize this along the lines of Uber or Airbnb and have jobbers and put it so that you just go to a single place and then say, I have this thing to replace. It's a very interesting thing for me, but I can't get it in the market because it is not a mass manufactured item. And I think somebody who hits upon this is likely to get into this. From an educational perspective, I think this is very, very important. It is important because it's a new way of learning. He didn't spend enough time, but Thingiverse is a whole community which teaches you about this. It has so many solutions already there, so many examples already there, and that you can start making. It was appearing from some of the conversation, how will you get 3D files created out of it? Now there are cameras which will do that for you. As he said, they will take multiple perspective thing, then sort of sew them together to create an image, put the appropriate file. So actually you have to be just an enabler. You've got stuff on Thingiverse, you've got this stuff, you get this, and as he said, you don't have to own. That's why this idea of a jobber, etc., is very similar to the idea of an Uber kind of a thing, where you don't own lots of things, people can be there. Why I'm saying this is because, in my view, many of the businesses of the future will be software driven and matching suppliers and providers. So whoever has that, whatever range it is there, people will be able to do that. What we'll now do is that we will have another presentation from Naman, who will talk about a few other tools which are interesting. And as I said earlier, that this is all about trying to make your voice felt in a very crowded place. So he will talk about some of these things, and I'm sure these are also things which we can use quite immediately. Hopefully.
I have one question.
Yes. So by all means.
Do you also have 3D sculptors where instead of depositing, you will remove from a monolithic block selectively and then something comes out of it because the same heat, other way around, basically the other way.
Yeah, so you have basically the CNC machines which are there. So you've got them now, desktop ones also, which would be similar to that. So what in that would happen, again, it moves with the X, Y, and Z axes. So instead of the extruder you have a
Excavator.
a milling tool, a milling tool, so which digs into it. So if you go on Tinkercad, what I was showing to you, so they give you two options. One is .stl file to create for a 3D printer, and the other is a .svg file to create, which you can create actually for a CNC machine. So yeah, you can use both.
Definitely in that Ajanta cave, the Kailash temple, is apparently done like
No,
that.
lot of
monolithic
see,
block.
all sculptors do that. So if this is additive manufacturing, that is subtractive manufacturing. So the other interesting
Milling machine that we used to use, we still use.
Correct. So they start from block and remove everything. In fact, it is very interesting. I can't help sharing this. There is a metaphor about educators as sculptors. So there is a whole metaphor about educators that here is something, and you remove everything else that is coming and showing his true form, true thing, etc., and so on. But I won't do that.
Two slides.
Just question. Firstly, this is the material, right, which is used to basically. Is there any limitations on what can be used for material?
No, not at all. So currently, I mean, this is a fused deposition modeling machine. So using ABS wire spool, but you can print, as I said, in chocolate, in concrete, in ceramic.
Even metal you say.
Yeah. So that exactly for food, gold, silver, titanium.
No limitations on the material.
No limitations. Yeah. Whole idea is that whatever you design, you should keep in mind that what is it that you're designing, and ultimately what is the material that you want it to be printed on.
Second thing, see, we understood that we can create a 3D image on CAD and then transfer that image to this printer using a card that you mentioned. But how does like the printer read from the card and then convert to the shape that we want? Like there has to be some computing power in the printer also.
So the .stl file is basically what is the you use to create, right? That's the product. So that we open, you create a G code, and the G code is the language of the printer. So it reads that, and it prints whatever is there in that.
So do we need to practice to get into the particular form that we want? Or even
See,
in
once you understand the designing, then you need to practice it. I mean, for example, when we started using MS Word and MS Excel, at times our prints, one page got cut, or there's some thing does not come, or it's not aligned the way it should have. So it's just like that. I mean, you just keep technique, and you with practice you learn it.
So what I understand, G code is something like a machine level language.
Yeah.
That tells the like printer.
This is what
this is the data movements.
Yeah.
Right. That's the concept.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.